Well, we'll go on to our presenter today, who's Garth Taylor, and I was just reading, he's going to talk to us today about Idaho water and agriculture, which should be very interesting. He's got all kinds of credentials, and I'm not going to go into them.
Don't repeat them. I hate people that pull credentials on you, because you know what they're doing? Blowing smoke.
Well, I agree with that, and this might be offensive to you, but
it's not.
You graduated from the wrong college. See, I got a degree in range management too, but it's from the University of Idaho.
Well, I went to where my dad and mom went to school. It was Utah State. Who wouldn't? You know? I never heard of anybody who went to the U of I.
So anyway, I'll turn it over to you.
All right.
And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from ag and water.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Garth Taylor. Dad's from Almo, Idaho. Mom's from Emmett.
It's changed it on this, but it's not changed.
Yes, Emmett's home. I'm neighbors with the governor. I live in Moscow. I'm sorry.
I'll just have to
So, neighbors with the governor. And half of Burlington's related to me. Like the Darringtons, the Ericksons, in fact, last year as the state legislature given a presentation with the legislature, and Representative Pickett came down and he says to me, "My name is Doug Taylor Pickett." He says, "My great-grandfather is Herman Helsman Taylor." And I said, "That's funny because my great-uncle is Herman Helsman Taylor." So I'm from here, born and raised in Idaho. 4 or 5 generations native Idaho. But I kind of have a vast experience. I've lived most around the world, a lot of places. So I worked a lot of places. Like my co-authors, who are more important than Terrell Sorensen, who just recently retired. He is a fabulous resource. I think he knows more about Idaho water than about anybody else. And Steve and Brett, who are just put these presentations together for me. They're just absolutely wonderful. I can't do without them. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to lay out a little bit about agriculture first. I think there's a lot of myths concerning agriculture in the state of Idaho. And I'm a confrontational person. I don't want to tell you stuff you'd already know. I'm going to put things together probably not the way you've never thought about them. And I like questions, and I don't like agreement. We're here to kind of work to get these things together. I'm not Moses. This isn't Moses and the tablets. This is put a lot of effort into making this informative to people that know a lot more about agriculture and water than I ever did. Let me put this in context. Idaho is a very small state economically. We're about the size of Rhode Island, the smallest state in the nation. Don't get an ego about Idaho. I know you're from here. It's a very small state. So when you deal with smalls, percentages make big differences, right? That's the way it is. Idaho is about the 5th largest ag state in the nation, as compared with California is the largest, right? But as compared with GDP, Idaho is the 5th. Look at Nebraska, North Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa that are ahead of Idaho. And here's Idaho, a very small state. It's a small state with big ag. That's what dominates. In the state, about 70% of sales, when you take the multiplier effects from agriculture throughout the state, about 17%, jobs about 12%, and GDP about 12%. In the Magic Valley, if you take these multiplier effects from agriculture and ag business, over 40%, Steve tells us, over 40% of the jobs in the Magic Valley are either directly or indirectly created by exports of agriculture and ag business. Okay? It's exports that create the new money coming in. We don't get rich by selling to each other. We get rich by prosperity by bringing in new money from outside the Magic Valley, from outside Idaho. You get other places in the state, even big Henrysport with the Spuds, ag businesses, and Rick's College. You can see the numbers there. It's not that we're dealing with and Steve will get you a copy of this presentation, won't you, Steve? Yeah. Agriculture in the state of Idaho is almost 2/3 livestock. There you got milk, over 1/3, beef, cattle, other lives, that's your fish, and for Bill, that's your sheep. But the other things right here, you see potatoes at about 12%. We're at a record high, $11 billion last year in sales of agricultural products. That's not cheese or stuff, that's just production agriculture. 11 billion. I can't tell you, when we first started at the university there, this was down bumping 2-3 billion. This is huge now. It's monstrous. We're setting new records in sales, stuff like that. But when Steve calculated up that when you calculate what goes into a cow or livestock and what's livestock purchases, maybe 75 or 80% of the production agriculture in the state of Idaho is related to livestock. It's a livestock-driven state. It wasn't that way, say, in the late 90s or something like that. It was still spuds and dominated. Very much dominated by milk. Cash receipts, here you've got Idaho right here. I always put Idaho as green. It's growing. I love these kind of graphs that show growth. Starts out at 0, and then it goes. It's grown 90% in real dollar terms since 1997. Amazing amount of growth in the cash receipts. And you look at the United States, it's only grown 50%. Idaho, you'll get a theme out of this, Idaho agriculture is growing faster than the United States. Think about that. And here's milk, 290% growth since 1997. So we're growing. I always tell Steve, it's not how big you are, it's how much you can score on the football team, right? How fast you are, how much you're growing. This is what counts. It's not bigness, it's growth. You're engine for growth in the state, not a big anchor. That's what you want to notice with this. And where's that growth being? Idaho agriculture and food is the largest export that we have in the state of Idaho. You can see electrical, this is micron down here, 27%. We're 27% of the exports, foreign. We're not going to get rich. I said this before. We're not going to get rich by selling food to each other or selling it. Some of us eat a little too much as it is. We're not going to get rich by selling it even here in the United States. The big growth in agriculture is still going to be from foreign markets, selling outside the state. We sell an awful lot of powdered milk and wheat. And
is a very big percentage of that international, or is it?
No, this is all international. That's all international. This is China.
Okay.
And our principal partners are Canada and Mexico. The United States as a whole is China. That's soybeans and corn and pork and stuff like that. Chicken feet, all the chicken feet in the United States are exported to China. Blocked up, frozen, sent to China. And so they're a record high. This is a record high for exports out of the state of Idaho. I hope I don't bore you with this. I'm hoping we'll skip some stuff. Steve, start throwing things. Net farm income in 2022 was up 56%. Can you imagine that? This is phenomenal. Phenomenal. It's over $3 billion. This is the net, not the gross, in production agriculture. Feed, I want you to notice some of these things. Government payments was down 36%. Idaho doesn't farm the government. We don't have the big crops like soybeans and corn and rice and cotton. We have wheat. We don't have the crops that garner government payments. We don't. I think that's probably what makes us grow so well, is that we don't respond to those government payments very well. Fertilizer, last year, you know that prices for inputs are just eating up farmers. Come on. You know that. You can see what they're right here. Up for interest, pesticides, fertilizer. But this is the one I want you to notice right here. Even though it's up over 17% in 2022, it's the largest category of expenses for farmers. Well, that's your hay for your cows. That's what it is. $1.8 billion right there. But that has a real teeter-totter effect. My brother in Emmett sells corn to the Littles for their feedlot. So when the corn goes up, my brother is really happy. And the governor is not so jolly about that. See what I'm saying? One goes up and the other one goes down. And it makes a very stabilizing force within there's no other industry that works that way, where the biggest part of their whole expenses are to themselves, from farmer to farmer. One goes up, it makes very stable types of things. You know how the dairymen are griping about hay prices this year, right? Well, the hay people are doing pretty jolly about that. So that's why I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So direct government payments, I'm not even going to go through that one. This one, you can see that net real farm income, here's the United States right here, and since 1997, it's growing 80%. In Idaho here, it's growing 150%. We're at almost double the growth in net farm income as the United States is in real dollar terms. This is the growth. This is what you want to focus on. Not big. Of course, the United States is bigger. We want to focus on the growth. The growth of this is really phenomenal growth in Idaho agriculture. Very much so. Now, this one, GDP. This is, I don't want to talk too much about this one. Steve, let's not talk about this one a little bit. This is, GDP is value added. And so you can see right here that Idaho total GDP is that 120. This one right here is a 1 year aberration. It'll be back up to here about this. You see, this one right here is Idaho agriculture. That's farming. It's growing 80%, but that will be up over here next year. So for all of that time, and here's the state's GDP growth at 120%.
So, Garth, explain the difference between value added and adding value.
Value added is the returns to land, labor, and capital. So it's the wages, it's above your fertilizer expenses. It's the wages to your workers, which is the value added in the state. It's the wages to proprietors. It's the wages to dividends, interest, and rent. That's basically what those three items are in GDP. And that measures the wealth, gross domestic product. It's the best measure, the broadest and most comprehensive measure of prosperity. I want to get that one down. It's not the sales. It's not the bigness. It's how much you add to the economy. And that's GDP. That's what you want to think about when you add this to the state. And this is interesting right here is that Idaho agriculture, the GDP out of farming should be up here, well be of that because it dropped in 2022. But you see that it's growing GDP in agriculture is growing faster than the state's economy. That's not the story we hear. Somehow Boise is the micron, and that's the engine of growth in the state economy. Farming is. That's what grows faster. Yes, there's other industries that grow faster than farming. It's growing faster than the state's economy. That's not the thing I heard for years, for decades from the Farm Bureau. You know that. Oh, this is the worst year ever. My dog died, my wife left me. That type of stuff here. Farm Bureau. Oh, this is terrible. I'm quitting farming. No, don't quit farming. You're growing faster than the state's economy. Here's food manufacturing. Look at this. It never was above zero until 2007. It was a declining industry. Your Chobani's, your Simplots was a declining. Only in the last few years it ticked up. It's almost zero in 2016. No growth at all in the food manufacturing GDP. It's farming, production agriculture that's been growing. This one, Steve and I just love this one because it aligns with our politics, and anything that confirms that is always good. Okay, let me explain this one. And tell me if you're getting bored with this, because we can skip over a lot of this type of stuff. Steve and I, you can't skip this one because Steve and I love this. Here's Washington, the purple. That's the UW, the Huskies, they're purple. Here is Oregon, and they're orange. The Oregon State's the Ducks, and they're orange, okay? And here's Idaho, that's green, okay? And this is GDP, real GDP, but I'm not comparing it with the state, I'm comparing it with the Northwest, right here. So you look at right here, Oregon hasn't grown a bit in farm GDP since 1997. Not a bit. And here is 40% for Washington, 70%. And that will go up right here again. So in other words, Idaho is outstripping growth in GDP than our northwestern neighbors. Part of this, let me explain it, because this is a whole cocktail of policies. This is why you are here. Steve likes to say, you wouldn't believe how Oregon mistreats their farmers. They've got regulations and everything like that, rejections. They don't have a policy in the state to grow agriculture. And agriculture doesn't grow by farmers markets or by local food systems or small farms. It grows by big ag. Half of the milk in the state of Idaho is produced by less than 20 farms. That's what adds value added. It's not these little teeny things like that. That detracts. They're down here with Oregon. and it's also the structure of agriculture. Big in Idaho is also the structure. We have dairy. In Oregon and stuff like that, they have hazelnuts. And these little things that are never going to grow very big. Never going to add a lot of GDP to the state. But Steve and I really firmly believe that a lot of this is the climate.
What's caused the big downturn in the last 2 years?
In the last year.
You say it's going to go away, but what causes it?
Oh, this GDP is really related to the returns, and the returns have been low in over 21 over 22. When that goes back up, it'll go. This is just, you see how volatile this is, up and down and up and down. It'll go away. There's just it'll be way up here. See, when it was way up there, it was so much bigger.
But you may not see that until 24, 25?
No. 23 we can talk. You guys know what's 2023 agriculture is going to look like better than I do. I'm not going to tell you anything new about what this year is going to look like. Steve can, but I can't.
So, Garth, with the current dairy situation, depending on which resource you look at, these dairymen right now are losing $4 to $5 a ton of weight.
Yeah.
Price of hay is, the bottom fell out of the price of hay.
Yeah, it's
so I and some of the inputs have come down a little bit, but not at the price of, not as much as the price of milk. So because dairy, as an overall industry, from the farm to the process.
How much of the revenues? Over a third.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of wondering. I mean, the dairy industry is going to snap back. Fourth quarter, they're talking maybe milk will come back a little bit, but not to profitable levels. Maybe break even.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if others, sugar beets are supposed to be really good this year. As far as prices go, potatoes, we don't know yet what's going to happen there. The cereal grains are kind of middle of the road.
Beef is looking real good.
Beef is looking really good. Do you expect, because of the size of the dairy industry,
that
is just going to pull
he
that?
He always does this. Asks a question what he already knows. Yes, Steve. It's good. Yes. Yes, yes, and more like yes. This is what's going to happen with this. But you see this, it's if you read the Capital Press, there's rarely a week that goes past when something in Oregon isn't bashing big ag or corporate ag, or not allowing a dairy to grow or site there, right? This is what causes this, and the nature of the agriculture in the state too. It's also that the dairy also grows. This is Steve's already looking at my sick joke. When prices of milk go up, those Dutch dairy farmers add cows. When the prices of milk go down, the Dutch dairy farmers add cows. I think I got it figured out. You'd think those pessimists would figure this out, but they do. It's growing. Even in 2009, when we had what was called the dairy disaster year, cow herd grew. They're optimistic about the way that this is going to go over the long term. So you're going to see this in that. This is why groups like this are so important. We don't want to get in this. If you're interested in agriculture, you don't want to get in this situation like Oregon is. This is not something we want to support, I guess, particularly the Magic Valley. Net farm. Oh, how did I get 2 slides in there? Oh, that's because I'm going. Steve, I'm going backwards or forwards? Which?
You're going forward now.
Oh, production agriculture doesn't contribute much to unemployment in the state, or employment in the state. Year after year, this green one up here is agriculture, and you can see it's about 40,000 jobs directly employed on the farm. You can see that the last few years it's up, but your Chobanis and your Simplots and stuff like that, about half of the employment that production agriculture has in the state. And it's very steady. It doesn't go up and down. What this reflects is that these huge productivity have not been hiring more people. They've been very labor efficient. And you well know, as I do, farmers cut labor every time they do so. They're substituting a lot of capital for labor in the production processes. I don't want to talk about that one. Here is, we always talk with the legislature about farmland values, and the best source right here is Northwest Farm Credit Services. USDA's numbers on land prices are garbage. They'll be reported in the newspaper, just ignore them. This is actual sales. You can see that in the Magic Valley, about $8,000 an acre for irrigated farmland. A lot of this, and you know, in the Magic Valley, it's not farmed suburbs, but a lot of this is driven by these REITs. They're buying large farms, turning around, farming them. Iowa Teachers Association, the retirements, buys big farms in Idaho. You turn around and have them managed professionally or rent it out to the farmers. This is what's driving a lot of this. Not so in the Magic Valley, $30,000 an acre. A lot of that's development. Is that really shooting them? That's development pressure. I don't know how you make $30,000 an acre pencil out as a farm and not a farmer. That's just absurd, but that's what it is. That's actual sales. I don't want to talk about the outlook. Steve can talk with you about that. So I want to switch to water. We know that agriculture in the state of Idaho is growing faster than the state's faster than the state's economy. Let's talk about water. And this is kind of I know this is death by PowerPoint, right? Get all of this down here, each state. But the one I want you to focus on right here, because I didn't want to put all these numbers in here, because that's a terrible situation. So I just snapped it off the web page, right? So here's Idaho, right here. You compare the length of the bars right here, the total bars. So what have you got here? Well, here's California, and here is Texas, and here is Idaho. The third largest state for irrigation in the nation. Little teeny Idaho. I mean, look at these kind of things here. Colorado, or look at New Mexico. I have a lot of colleagues down in New Mexico. The bar's barely off the. That's it. It's the third largest for total withdrawals, total water taking out of the aquifer or out of a reservoir or out of the. It's the second largest irrigated state in the nation.
Isn't it true that Idaho is the only one of those three that actually regulates pumping? I'm pretty sure California and Texas, either one, are just.
They're starting, and they had some laws that kicked in last year in California. Okay, you're right. Texas is that you got land above it, your water's below it. So you're right about that. That's right about it. That's right. You can see the relative types of things right here. This is irrigation, okay? So you see how the relative bars on that one. The blue one is other, and the little blue one is public supply, that's cities. Okay? So the other, that's your fish farms. That's about 10%, 12% of Idaho withdrawals or go through the fish farms for an industry that's about the size of $5 million was the year before last.
The interesting thing about fish farming, if the quality's kind of kept up, it's a non-consumptive use.
That's right. And I'll talk, you hold that thought. Hold that thought. One of the other ones, about 97% of this water goes for agriculture. Only 3% goes for Boise, the giant sucking. Yeah, that's a myth. They tell me at USGS that the air term, Bethany, in measuring this would eradicate all the, is larger, you have an air term, plus or minus, right? The air term is bigger than what the city of Boise uses.
Oh.
We'll get back to this. Hold that one thought a little bit more. This is right here, this is consumptive use right here. And here's Idaho. You see when you have a very efficient water state. This dot will be way up here on the top of this, where you have a lot of sprinklers as opposed to gated pipe or flood irrigated. You can see Idaho's about in that middle like that. This is not very good data. I'm really ashamed of this, but it's what's there. But you can see when you get a state with Nebraska that has almost all pivots, you get efficiency very high. You know, the plus 90% on efficiency on consumptive use. And this is Idaho irrigation, and like I said right here, 86% for irrigation. If you add another 10 or 12%, 12% to that, you get your 90 some odd percent for your fish farms, right? All of these states are all, even in California with all of the swim movie stars and everything like that, California is where? 74%. The water problems in each of the states are agriculture. They're not cities or swimming pools or anything like that. They're all agriculture. Agriculture owns water issue. That's what's to talk about cities and stuff like that is just the second order smalls. This is where the irrigation is in the state. You know, Snake River Plain right here. You notice Othello, Moses Lake right here in the middle, right? You see the Central Valley of California. You see this right over here. That's rice and cotton in Arkansas. Big water user. Okay, let's bring it down to Idaho. Steve and I put these together. That's why they're not the greatest graphics in the world. Okay? So let's go and let's look at Twin Falls County. We got right here, and here's Gooding with aquaculture up here. But I think USGS has a real problem, Steve and I decided, with classifying where to put the fish farm since they're right on the line. It's whether I should put them up here with Gooding County or I should put them here with Twin Falls County. And each time they do these, each 5 or 7 years they do them, it seems to change a little bit. So don't take too much into that, okay? And the size of these things are the size of the amount of water use that they have. So you see Twin Falls right here. But you see the only one of the whole state that has any of the red right here, barely see it. That's Boise. Only one of that. You can hardly see it, can you? So it's the size of these. So you've got these counties down here that are your big water users, and you've got some over here in Bingham County, and then you've got Canyon County over there. And you can see the relative size of what they're doing. Twin Falls is the largest water withdrawals county in the state.
And that's groundwater and surface
That's
water?
total withdrawals. Lakes, streams, groundwater, reservoirs, anything that's taken out. The fish farms technically take out the water, even though it runs through out of the mountain, stuff like that. Take out that. This is Steve and I put this together right here, and this is total Idaho withdrawals, total for fish farms, Boise, and spots and everything. You can see that it peaked up here in 1985. Since then, it's down here in 2015. Water use has been declining in the state of Idaho. That's a big myth, isn't it? Exploded. It's been declining. That means that agricultural water has been declining. Agricultural water use has been declining. Garth calls it decoupled. Idaho water use has been declining, has been decoupled from productivity of agriculture. This is almost every state that's the same thing. Oh boy.
Because of efficient.
Yeah, efficiency and use.
Well, I'm not going to go with you on this one. I don't know. You're going to have to tell me, because I have one of my colleagues up there, a young man, and he's from over at Moses Lake area. Now, he said to me that when he left to Washington State, his father put in a pivot. Dad, why'd you put in a pivot? Because you went to college. Why? Right? Does it have anything to do with water? Not a thing. Right? It's that labor. A lot of this, has nothing to do, that's my opinion. You can take that as what you want. That's a Garth opinion. But I think a lot of this has not too much to do with water. It has to do with labor and capital. And efficiency, drip tape over in Parma. Why did they use drip tape? I walked into a Roger Batts, one of the conferences over there, and I went over to the site, not where the conference was, but where the vendors are, and chatted with the guy about drip tape. And I said, wow, I'll bet you this saves a lot of water. He looks at me like I'm some kind of mole. I've been living underground for. He goes, this is not about water. Water's cheap. He says, this is about the quality of onions that we're going to put out here, and the chemical and the precision that. He said, water's cheap.
That's it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Drip tape is expensive. But it's not about water. It's not about water conservation. It's about something else. That's my opinion.
Well, try to rent a piece of ground that's not under a very efficient system like Springfield. You can't rent it because it takes too much labor.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll let it go. They'll let it go.
Hey, Garth, have you ever talked to the canal companies like Drone County is over 90% pay less than our Spencer irrigation?
Yeah.
And I've talked to them and they say they still deliver the same amount of water every year. It hasn't cut down on the amount of water required to provide water to pressure.
I think this is one of the really interesting points that people like yourself should explore. I live in Moscow now, and I'm not connected with you guys anymore. Relatives here. This is something. I'm not a Moses in the tablets on this. This is something for you to explore and the things that are going on. It's a very complex reasoning. I can give you some things, little stories, can't I? And you see these things, but I don't know.
Does it have to do with, farmlands that are being sold for homes now instead of actually?
That could be. Okay. Because homes use a lot less water per acre than corn or alfalfa. And the consumptive use, who is Mr. Consumptive Use over here? That's way down, except what you put on your lawn. To water your driveway, it just goes down in the drain ditch, right? Everything else, that's not consumptive use. So this is, let me show you a little bit more about this. And this one right here is, you can pick out your county. Here's, which ones? This is Ada County. So you can see right here, and this is one of those growth maps again. 0, it starts out at 0, Bethany, right here, 0. And right back here, and it grows since 1985, and it goes over here. So Ada County has been declining in water use. Total with water withdrawals. Look at where's Idaho as a whole. You see the same phenomenon that goes down here. Gooding, well, it's pretty much, the growth went up, but it's pretty much flattened out. It goes like this. Where's Carrie? Where's Cassia County? Blue. Blue. Let's look at this one. So it goes, starts out at 0. Well, went up to 30%, and now it's pretty much 0 since 1985.
Where are you getting your withdrawal data?
This is all USGS data.
Oh, that's the problem.
Yeah, you can fight with it, but this is the best we have. Look at Twin. It's back to 0. Not even growth in this. It's just the only. Now this is Garth right here. This is not even Steve, so Steve doesn't have anything to do with this. This is Garth. What I did was I put an index of growth on irrigation, water withdrawals. This is an index, not total amount. So here's in 1985. And then I made an index of crop productivity. This is tons or bushels or. It's not dollar amounts. It's
Volume.
yeah, weights amounts or something like that. Volume of productivity. You see right here. So it's 126. It's grown by 126 so it's 1. I should put 0 in there and subtract 1. It's grown by 26% since 1985. Water has dropped by 25%. It's the growth in the productivity and the physical amounts of alfalfa and spuds and everything like that has been decoupled from the growth in water use. And so
quite a bit of that could be because of improved varieties, right?
I think it's a whole bunch of stuff like this. The better management of water, this capital types of substituting with for pivots for. A lot of us kind of grew up in an era where we lifted a lot of hand line. I don't know of anybody who moves pipe anymore. Do you?
Not now.
Just
the corners.
Corners.
I can show you farms that are solid set and they move a lot of lines down between Hamlet and Grandview, that area. There's still a few diehards.
Yeah,
Still got the labor.
yeah.
Everybody else, all the neighbors are pivots, but they still got their man lines out.
Yeah, must be have a big family of boys. That's all I gotta say. But it's been decoupled from this. I'm kind of mystified by a lot of this, and I think it's a cocktail of things that we're seeing right here. That's we're dealing with, but it's not. It's certainly not growing.
I still can't understand the consumption of water going down when our actual growth period in the state of Idaho is increased by about 19 to 20 days, frost to frost.
Now this is not consumption. This is total withdrawals. This is not. This is This is not. I don't know what consumption has gone with. I think it's hugely increased, but without much documentation. That's my opinion. The consumption of water use has gone way up. The total withdrawals have gone way down.
Which just means it's not being returned back to the aquifer.
Yes, that's the whole problem, as you can see with that. You're going to have to put some nuances to this and think about it for yourselves. I don't know how to. I don't know how to think about all of that type of stuff. But this is withdrawals versus not consumption. Now I want to switch just a little bit to the municipal water use. This is the municipal water use. They call it something that used to be United Water, and then it was Suez Water. Now it's something else. It's the City of Boise Water. Bethany, right here.
Yes.
Whatever they changed the names of them, right?
I know Suez. I don't know the other ones, but yeah.
Well, they changed it.
Okay.
And so here right here is somebody online told me.
Yeah. Curtis said it.
Yeah, so right here, this is not just growth, this is the amount of water that they would pump. It's mostly pumped. I think it's 80-90% pumped from the aquifer. And so here it is, it's going out here. You see, if you looked a little bit, that dotted line is declining just a little bit. This is essentially flat from 1980, the mid-80s. The city of Boise, despite the growth in population, the water use is flatlined since the 1980s. Here, they call these porcupine graphs, Steve, because here's the quills of the porcupine when you poke it, right? And here is Department of Water Resources forecast for water use. Here it is. Oh, they made another one, porcupine. Here they made a low and a high. It's still way above. Even a very poor economist could draw that line out here. That's the way it is. They're forecasting way more than these growth in these areas are. And they're continuing to do such. What this is going to do is the phenomenon is called, when you overbuild, stranded assets.
Well, the guy would go by that, the top line, the heavy forecast, yeah. Was water available even at that?
Yeah, they pump it. Yeah, they pump it from the aquifer. It's not, the aquifer's not going down at all around the Boise area. This isn't a supply problem or restriction. And you know, Bethany, that all of that water that's pumped in Boise, Nampa, Meridian is all leakage from the New York Canal and Lake Lowell.
Yeah, we still flood irrigate, and we live 2 minutes from downtown, so.
Yeah. It's not a supply restriction. It's demand is shifted in Boise.
Everything that I see says that our water overall is over allocated. We
Yeah.
have big subdivisions. There's an article today in the paper about a 450 unit subdivision somewhere in the Boise area that doesn't know where they're going to get their water. And they've been, Department of Water Resources, I think, is thinking about trying to regulate private wells because they don't count them against.
Yeah, the de minimis wells, what they call.
I think you're wrong about the water being on the increase.
No, it's water usage being on the decrease.
Yeah.
Increase usage, yeah.
So are they focusing on the wrong thing to where they're projecting the water use is going to go up and we're seeing the water use is leveling off, but they see the issue is that we don't have the aquifer that's recharging. So are they focusing on the wrong thing to make their forecasts?
This is one of these things that these groups like this should be addressing. This is one of those things that, and what's leading to this is like this. The nation of Australia, this was not this last drought, it was not the drought, but a drought, a really bad one a few years ago. They bought 4 desal plants, multi-billion desal plants. They only implemented 1. All of those billions of dollars sat there because if you charge people for the desal plant, they're going to not buy it. And they can't. They just can't buy that. You can imagine paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month for your water bill at your house. They won't do it. So this one is my favorite one, and it's the city of Idaho Falls. And I'm going to explain this one. And indulge me a little bit. Idaho Falls does not have meters. They're in a big fight about meters. They never have had meters. Their water bill is in with their property tax. And you see a lot of wet gutters and sidewalks in Idaho Falls. They turn it on in May, shut it off in September. And So here is January. This is per capita water use. You see January up here. It's declining. This is pure indoor water use. You're not watering your lawn in January in Idaho Falls, right? Look at all of these are going down and down and down. Then you start to get, this is month number 5. You start to see, and it goes up. But I want to pick up July here. It goes up to about in the mid-1990s, early 90s, right there. And then it kinks and goes down. Then you see the rest of these it's down. So your indoor water use, without ever being metered, your flush and brush, right, is going down in the winter months. And in the summer months where you have, you notice this is a way larger scale than that, right, because it has the lawns, right? It's bigger than that. But see what you're seeing right here is even on the lawns, there is water use is going down in those cities. Despite the fact that there is no increasing block rate, people are using less water, indoor and outdoor, even without prices motivating them. You tell me why. But that's what again, I think it has to do a lot with, it has to do a lot with our behaviors towards, it has very little to do with the price of water, obviously, zero in any case, but it has to do with what we have to do with our capital and our labor in using water. It takes a lot of money and labor to use a lot of water in the inside of the house. This is before low. I want to tell you, there was no such thing as low flush potties in 1958. You know, and it's been going, and it's 78. This is not that at all. Everybody tells me that's what it is. No, there was no such thing as those things, let alone installed. I think a little bit of this right here, this right here, this early to middle 90s, is people putting in automated sprinklers in subdivisions, right, in houses. Because people don't want to go around and drag around the sprinkler. They'd rather have it automated.
Yeah, wise enough to do it at night, too, so that it's not all evaporating off.
Yeah, they do it less. Because they can push a button. Again, it's labor, not
that's
water.
What that meant.
That's what, that's my, don't, Bethany, don't.
No, I meant, that's what you, I was thinking they're not hiring people, they need people. No, it's the personal labor that you're willing to expend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking that may be this, but I don't know what's making it go down like this. This is a very small decline, but it's nonetheless there. This has a really profound effect for you in the cities and stuff like that you go and set your rate structures. Because this, you set high rates in the wintertime, and it's not going to have any effect on water use. Maybe in the summertime here. Not going to happen. All you're going to do is wintertime rates like that. All you're going to do is gouge the same as it's identical to a property tax. They're not going to alter water use at all. Steve will shower less, but I won't. And so I think that's just about all the. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know where to wrap that up.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate the heck out of that.
And any questions? Oh, come on, somebody. Some of this is pretty controversial, like the water use one.
Maybe I kind of missed it, but initially you were talking about agriculture and tolls and stuff, and then you got into the value of water to a point.
Yeah.
We're mainly interested in water quality and quantity, or vice versa.
Yeah.
From a state value,
What, do you guys have a figure on the value of water? You kind of had a per acre
Yeah.
figure.
My feeling is when you look at these types, Steve and I've done quite a little bit about, looking at the impact of water use and stuff to get, I'm going to give you a long answer to a very short question. But we've done with this, like the cutbacks and the curtailments and everything like this, so that the impact of those curtailments is not dependent upon the size of the multiplier. It's dependent upon the scenario that you build, how farmers are going to respond to that curtailment. You give them a year and say, you're going to get curtailed so many acres out there. Well, Steve will tell you they start shifting contract acres here to there to there. So their high value crops don't get hit. And so if you give them a long enough time, but if you tell you something like this, the curtailment that was a few years ago when the Governor Otter threatened to call out the state police, that was 2 weeks. We're going to shut off your water. Well, that hurts. That's the full amount of the impact of that value of that crop. And it really depends upon how you administer those curtailments and stuff like that. And the farmers adjust to that. Move acres, do this and that, allocate different crop mixes and everything like that. And it can be fairly minimal. Still there, but very minimal. But if you shut them off tomorrow without anything like that, you've got a problem. And it's going to have a huge impact on your economy right away. And the other thing is that when you're talking about these values, it's very hard to think. We've all been around. There's no agriculture in Utah, is there? A little bit out there, right? There's no agriculture in Wyoming. I think our state's economy would be really shifting to look a lot like Utah or Wyoming, and I don't know how to put a value or number to that. I just think that that's probably the way it is. It's going to look a lot like, Eastern Oregon or something like that. We have a place like that, an economy that would. And certainly a place like the Magic Valley, when 40% of your employment is direct or indirect, I can't imagine that look like the high plains out there in Wyoming. And that's the way it's going to look without water. That's my feeling. I don't know how to put a number on that, but that's what I told the water users when they testified how it would look like Wyoming. We kind of value agriculture as one of our fast-growing industries, right? And that's what it's going to take away. So, I hope they got that.
Do you have any opinion or knowledge to dispense about the quality of water, or is that out of your purview?
That's really out of my purview.
Yeah.
But we have really high-quality water in the state of Idaho, generally. We really do. It's, you know more about it than I do. There's a spot over here, the phosphorus with the fish farms, but we've seen a lot of that type of stuff, and we have really a lot of abundant water. Our state's agriculture economy and the ag processing is built upon cheap, abundant water, period. The Wyoming is built on that. I don't know how to put a number to that, but you know that.
Well, thank you, Garth.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
I think, Garth gave us a lot of good data, good information, but along with that, for me anyway, it gave me a lot of things to think about that probably I wasn't before, which we need to do. So, appreciate that.